Welcome to History with Herodotus, where the tapestry of time unfolds before our very eyes. Today, we embark on a journey to explore one of the most tumultuous periods in modern Chinese history, the Cultural Revolution. This pivotal event, spanning from 1966 to 1976, was a maelstrom of radical social, political, and economic upheaval that would leave an indelible mark on the nation and its people. China, then a republic, had been beset by internal strife, foreign invasion, and the lingering effects of colonialism. The Chinese Communist Party, founded in 1921, gradually gained momentum under the leadership of Mao Zedong, who would eventually become the chairman of the party. Mao's vision for a socialist China, as outlined in his writings and speeches, emphasized the importance of peasant-led revolution and the need for continuous class struggle. In the aftermath of World War II, the Chinese Civil War resumed, pitting the Nationalist Party, led by Chiang Kai-shek, against the Communist Party. The Communists ultimately emerged victorious in 1949, with Mao declaring the establishment of the People's Republic of China on October 1st of that year. As the new government consolidated power, Mao implemented a series of radical policies aimed at transforming China into a socialist state. The first five-year plan, launched in 1953, focused on rapid industrialization and collectivization of agriculture. However, these efforts were soon followed by the disastrous Great Leap Forward, initiated in 1958. This campaign, intended to rapidly modernize China's economy, resulted in one of the deadliest famines in human history, with estimates suggesting that between 20 and 45 million people perished. The failure of the Great Leap Forward led to a period of retrenchment and consolidation within the Communist Party, as various factions vied for power and influence. Mao, who had been criticized for his role in the Great Leap Forward, began to reassert his authority within the party. He launched the socialist education movement in 1963, aimed at purging capitalist and traditional elements from Chinese society. This movement laid the groundwork for the Cultural Revolution, as it created an atmosphere of heightened ideological fervor and intolerance. As we move closer to the events that would unfold during the Cultural Revolution, it is essential to understand the intellectual and cultural landscape of China in the early 1960s. The country was experiencing a resurgence of interest in traditional Chinese culture, as well as a growing fascination with Western ideas and values. This dichotomy created tensions between those who advocated for a more liberal, open approach to socialism and those who championed a rigid, orthodox interpretation of Marxist-Leninist ideology. In 1965, a critique of the play, WWII, Dismissed from Office, written by Wu Han, a historian and deputy mayor of Beijing, became a focal point for debate. The play was seen as an allegory for Mao's dismissal during the Great Leap Forward, and its criticism sparked a wider discussion about the role of intellectuals in Chinese society. This intellectual ferment would soon boil over into the streets as students, workers, and peasants began to mobilize around competing visions for China's future. As the intellectual ferment reached a boiling point, Mao Zedong, sensing an opportunity to reassert his authority and push his vision for a socialist China, began to mobilize support among the masses. In May 1966, he launched a campaign to bombard the headquarters, targeting the party's moderate leaders, including President Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping, who were seen as obstacles to his radical agenda. This marked the beginning of the Cultural Revolution, a period that would be characterized by widespread violence, destruction, and social upheaval. On May 25, 1966, a group of students from Tsinghua University Middle School, inspired by Mao's call to action, posted a big character poster denouncing their school leaders as reactionary. This act of defiance sparked a wave of similar protests across Beijing as students and teachers began to organize themselves into radical groups known as Red Guards. The Red Guards, fueled by ideological fervor and a sense of revolutionary zeal, soon took to the streets, attacking perceived enemies of the revolution, including intellectuals, party officials, and members of the educated elite. As the summer of 1966 wore on, the violence escalated, with Red Guards ransacking homes, destroying cultural artifacts, and beating or killing those deemed counter-revolutionary. The streets of Beijing became a battleground, with rival factions of Red Guards clashing in bloody confrontations. In August 1966, Mao reviewed a parade of over 1 million Red Guards in Tiananmen Square, praising their revolutionary spirit and encouraging them to continue their campaign against the four olds: old ideas, old culture, old customs, and old habits. The following months saw the spread of the Cultural Revolution to other parts of China, as Red Guards and radical worker groups took control of cities, towns, and villages. In Shanghai, a group of workers led by Wang Hongwen seized power in January 1967, establishing a short-lived but influential commune. Meanwhile, in the countryside, peasants were mobilized to attack local leaders and destroy traditional forms of social organization. One of the most notorious events of the Cultural Revolution took place in August 1967, when a group of Red Guards invaded the British legation in Beijing, sacking the building and beating the diplomatic staff. This incident marked a low point in China's relations with the outside world and highlighted the chaos and anarchy that had gripped the country. As the Cultural Revolution entered its second year, the violence showed no signs of abating. In 1968, Mao launched a campaign to cleanse the class ranks, targeting those deemed to be enemies of the revolution, including former landlords, rich peasants, and intellectuals. This campaign resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of people, many of whom were forced to undergo brutal forms of struggle session, torture. In July 1968, Mao sent millions of urban youth to the countryside, where they were forced to live and work among the peasants as part of a campaign to revolutionize the educated elite. This policy, known as the Down to the Countryside movement, would have a profound impact on Chinese society as young people from urban areas were exposed to the harsh realities of rural life and began to question the ideological certainties of the revolution. As the Down to the Countryside movement continued, millions of young people were forcibly relocated to rural areas where they faced immense hardship and disillusionment. Many began to question the revolutionary ideology that had driven them to participate in the Cultural Revolution, and some even started to organize themselves into clandestine groups, seeking to challenge the authorities. In 1971, a pivotal event marked a significant turning point in the Cultural Revolution: the death of Lin Biao, Mao's designated successor, who was killed in a plane crash while attempting to flee to the Soviet Union after a failed coup attempt. This incident led to a major shift in the balance of power within the Communist Party, as Mao began to consolidate his control and purge potential rivals. In the following years, the Cultural Revolution slowly began to wind down as the economy teetered on the brink of collapse and social order began to break down. In 1972, Zhou Enlai, a moderate leader who had managed to navigate the treacherous waters of the Cultural Revolution, initiated a series of economic reforms aimed at reviving China's stagnant economy. However, it was not until after Mao's death in 1976 that the Cultural Revolution officially came to an end. The new leadership, led by Deng Xiaoping, who had been purged during the Cultural Revolution but had managed to survive and even thrive in the aftermath, set about rebuilding the country and implementing a series of pragmatic reforms. As Deng Xiaoping famously said, "It doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice," highlighting his focus on practical results rather than ideological purity. The post-Mao era saw a concerted effort to come to terms with the legacy of the Cultural Revolution, including the establishment of a museum in Beijing dedicated to documenting its history and the publication of numerous memoirs and histories by those who had lived through the period. Today, the Cultural Revolution is remembered in China as a traumatic and complex episode in the country's modern history. While some still view it as a necessary step towards the country's current prosperity, others see it as a catastrophic event that caused immense human suffering and destroyed much of China's cultural heritage. As the Chinese historian and dissident Yan Jiaqi has noted, the Cultural Revolution was a tragedy not just for the victims, but also for the perpetrators, who were often young people who had been misled by ideology and manipulated by those in power. The legacy of the Cultural Revolution can be seen in China's ongoing struggles with issues such as censorship, human rights, and the role of the Communist Party in society. The event has also had a profound impact on the country's relationship with the outside world, as China continues to navigate its position as a global superpower while still grappling with the consequences of its turbulent past. In conclusion, the Cultural Revolution was a pivotal moment in modern Chinese history, one that continues to shape the country's politics, society, and culture today. Its complex and often contradictory legacy serves as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ideology and the importance of protecting human rights and promoting social justice. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.